Hello everyone. Welcome to another stream. Oh my goodness. Yeah, daylight savings, that fucked me up today. I'm used to streaming 1 hour earlier, I guess. Or no, 1 hour later. So I'd still have an hour left before I started streaming. So everything was fucked up 1 hour later today. I woke up an hour later and that was already that was already kind of shitty for me. And then it sort of turned into this domino effect where everything felt a little more delayed than I wanted it to. And yeah, thankfully I made it on time today. I guess you could nickel and dime me and say that I started streaming at 1:01 p.m., but for that I would say that you're a jerk. Anyway, we're here to talk about our Devastation Red. We are at part 10, I believe. Part 10 of my series. There are still two parts left. Tomorrow, well, I'm actually going to be taking tomorrow off. But on Tuesday, I'll be talking about green, and on Wednesday, we'll finish up with multicolored artifacts and lands. So I'm still 1 hour early for Sharda. That's kind of strange that you guys don't do daylight saving times. Like, it's different depending on the country. I was not aware of that. I figured it was just a universal thing, but I guess not. But yeah, this is a fun card to start it on. A Braid, 1 and a red. Instant. Choose one. A Braid deals 3 damage to target creature, or you can destroy target artifact. So Braid's pretty interesting. I have kind of a controversial take on it, and if you've stuck around my channel long enough, I think you guys might know where I'm gonna go. But I think a Braid's not gonna make it for the beginning of this meta. Personally, I feel like GPG is losing quite a number of cards that are going to make it, a lot worse than you'd want it to be. And we're not facing Mardu vehicles. There was something else that I took a note of that a Braid doesn't work on, and I wish I could remember. Oh yes, I remembered. So another card that we don't have to deal with is Torrential Gearhulk. And a Braid is just another card that can easily just deal with that. So there's a lot of things that are in the standard meta that the arena meta doesn't necessarily have to deal with. Torrential Gearhulk being yet another one. Mardu vehicles being yet another one. So when you look at a Braid, one of the only decks that I can really think that you'd want to have it against would be a God Pharaoh's Gift deck. And I just feel like the utility of it is quite low once all of these cards rotate in. You gotta consider that even if we do face GPG, I don't think we're going to be facing it too much. When we do, maybe you can throw your Braids from the sideboard into your main deck. But otherwise, I think I'm going to be running Lightning Strike. Once Kaladesh rotates in, that's a whole nother story, because then I can, use the Braids on Gearhulks, and GPG will be a lot stronger, and Mardu vehicles will be, once again, a thing. But right now, I feel like a Braid is just not in its strongest spot. There's a lot of things that we just don't really have to worry about. And yeah, I feel like pointing Lightning Strikes at your opponent's face is just going to be a better option to have than destroying artifacts. A lot of talk about time now. Now that I complained about daylight savings time. So you start 1 to 2 weeks later, but quit 1 to 2 weeks earlier. I'm assuming when you say start and quit, you mean daylight savings time. Spoiler: the sun doesn't rise and set simultaneously at every point on Earth. because one day in Europe, the U.S. is on the wrong side of the planet. Okay. A lot of talk about time. Can't blame you. It's a daylight savings time will do that. It'll stir some conversations between Americans and Europeans. One of which is setting their clocks forward, and one of which is not. All right. I'm sorry, setting their clocks back. I always get confused when I say setting their clocks forward or back because I have to think about it. And anyway, Blur of Blades, 1 and a red. Instant, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. Blur of Blades deals 2 damage to that creature's controller. This card's just kind of bad. You could run it in a minus counters deck. The problem with Blur of Blades is I feel like it would synergize pretty poorly with, and I'll get to the card. Let's see. Finding cards is not my strong suit today, clearly. It's in here somewhere, I assure you guys. Where are you? I've probably scrolled by it. There we are, Skull Carnage. So it synergizes pretty poorly with Soulscar Mage when Soulscar Mage already is focused on dealing 1/1 counters, and I feel like the 2 damage is kind of small, for being honest. I know it's a nice bonus, but I don't think this card's very good. You're in the get rid of DST. It's got a lot of support. Interesting. Okay. Burning Fist Minotaur, 1 and a red. Minotaur Wizard, first strike. 1 and a red. Discard a card. Burning Fist Minotaur gets +2/+0 until end of turn. No. Hey, I'm not getting as derailed as the chat is. You can give me that shard out, right? I quickly read the comment, got back to the cards, you know. All right, this card's pretty meh to me. I know you can get your hazards in ahead of schedule, but again, we don't have Madness. You have to spend 2 mana just to do that. The difference between 1 and 2 mana is significant. Its utility sort of runs out as you discard more and more cards, until you get to this point in the game where you have no cards in hand, and I guess you'd be discarding the top card of your, the next card you draw every turn. I can't see myself using this. I think 1 toughness also makes it a little less appealing. It depends on the competition, though, you know? If the competition is shitty enough, this card might see play. I'm not the biggest, red deck player at the moment, so trying to think of what it competes with is a little difficult to me. I'll see if I can pull some competition up real quick, though. Direfleet Daredevil, I don't think it competes with Direfleet Daredevil. Just the first card that came up. I think, yeah, if you're comparing those 2 cards, man, I'm sorry, Burning Fist Minotaur, but you are no Direfleet Daredevil. Anything else in here that I want to take a look at? Probably just a bunch of pirates, right? A bunch of, okay, a raptor. Let's go back to red real quick. Fathom Fleet Fire Bland. Fathom Fleet Fire Bland. It is a bland card. I gotta give myself credit for that punt. Yeah, there's not too many great cards, but I do feel pretty strongly that what's the name of the card again? That Direfleet Daredevil is probably in the best spot right now as far as red 2 drops go. And I'm just not too impressed by this card, even for your decks that try to, go heckbent as I like to call it. Not hellbent, you have to be heckbent because you have at least 1 card in hand for your hazard to attack. Um, okay, Chandra's Defeat. 1 red, instant. Chandra's Defeat deals 5 damage to target red creature or red planeswalker. If that permanent is a Chandra planeswalker, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. Can't complain with this. I can kind of see why they like to sideboard Chandra's Defeat in standard. It just, the amount of utility you get, the rate at which red deck wins gets played. Chandra's Defeat just seems like an excellent sideboard card. 5 damage, that's insane. That takes a Torch of Defiance right out at instant speed, which is impressive. Furthermore, you do get a loot effect, and I know it's discard then draw, but can you really complain? I find it hard to complain after reading the beginning of this. So, eats some dinos as well. Some. I think the dinos it hits aren't necessarily that great though, because Ripjaw Raptor is probably the most common dinosaur in dinosaur decks, which it does not hit. It does not hit Ripjaw Raptor. What it does hit is a card called Regis Our Alpha. So any of these multicolored dinos, Jishath, it doesn't hit Jishath, but it could hit Raging Swordtooth. You're only killing half of Regis Our Alpha, so it's not as sweet as I'd wish for it to be. But that's more of a fact of Regis Our Alpha being a good card than it is of Chandra's Defeat being a good card. And I know Regis Our Alpha doesn't see play in standard. I think this deck is going to start to die off. But yeah, what Shard is saying though does bring up a good point. Like, you can hit Sky Terrors with it. You can hit Marauding Looters. Like, anything with red in its mana symbol, it will actually hit. Like Admiral Beckett Brass. I know those are kind of bad examples, but I'm just trying to illustrate that, as he's pointing out, like Boros Swatley, there are a lot of cards that you can hit that are, still, it's not quite fully red, but Glorybringer, yeah, that's probably one of the better ones. I think, and someone said it in an earlier stream, and I forgive me because I forgot who it was, but I believe they hit the nail on the head. They were saying that Chandra's Defeat and Jace's Defeat are probably the two best of the defeat cards, and I think I agree with that. For any of you curious, Jace's Defeat counters target blue spell. When if it counters Jace Planeswalker, you get to scry 2. Chandra's Defeat, I think this is even better than Jace's Defeat sideboard because it can just hose a red deck down. And one thing that's especially relevant about red decks is that normally they don't have like indestructible or anything, Hazoret being the exception. Like, they have reasonably sized creatures that you can hit. It's not like green, for example. Like, green has some big ass creatures that would just survive it, whereas red, the creatures are generally a little faster, a little smaller, and Chandra's Defeat will have a slightly easier time dealing with them. And yeah, I really like this card. How's it going, Shaolin? Hello, Eugenides. Hello, CGB. Bunch of people showing up. Let's talk about Chaos Maw. 5 and 2 red. Hellion. When Chaos Maw enters the battlefield, it deals 3 damage to each other creature. Interesting. Huh. So there's a card in Amonkhet called Sweltering Suns, and this kind of is a Sweltering Suns on a stick. I don't think I like it that much, and that's not to say it's bad, but I think I'd still rather have Sweltering Suns just in general. It also kind of reminds me of a card called Burning Sun's Avatar, which doesn't deal 3 damage to everything, but it deals 3 damage to target creature and opponent. Chaos Maw does not deal 3 damage to target opponent. It is a little bit easier in that it doesn't have triple red, although it is a 7-drop, and Burning Sun's Avatar is a 6-drop. I'd much rather it be when it ETB or attacks. Oh, so then you attack and it deals 3 damage to everything. That would be pretty cool. But I don't think I'm going to play around with this card. I think that... Well, that's another point. It does miss a good tribe. Unless you want to make your Hellion deck. I feel like we've gotten enough Hellions. We might need some help from Kaladesh, because we'll get Lathnu Hellion. You could make a Hellion tribal. It wouldn't be good, but you could do it. Oops, that's not the tab I wanted to open up. That's my deck tech. Don't pay attention to that. Let's see. I'm just trying to think. Would you rather have this? Would you rather have Burning Sun's Avatar, or would you rather have Sweltering Suns? I think you'd rather have Sweltering Suns or Burning Sun's Avatar than you'd have Chaos Ma in any decks. Like, I just feel like this card doesn't quite do it for me. It's too expensive, and I'd rather just spend 1 less mana, albeit for a triple red, and get a Burning Sun's Avatar even, than a Chaos Ma. Or if I'm not doing that, then just give me Sweltering Suns. It looks okay. Like, probably it's probably decent, but there's just other cards that are better. Crash Through, 1 red, sorcery, creatures you control gain trample until end of turn, draw a card. Pretty bad. You have to have a board state, and this is another one of those cards that I'm always gonna hate on, because you have to have a board state for it to work, and otherwise it's a dead card. And I think this is a really bad dead card. Like, it's not like they get +1/+0 or anything. They just get trample and you draw a card. I guess drawing a card could help, but meh, I don't know. Not something I'm a big fan of. It just feels very underwhelming, even with the fact that it kind of cycles its way out and gives trample. Ninjo confirmed cantrip hater. I guess you might not be wrong there. As far as cantrips are concerned, I know this is a cheaper one, but it goes in a very specific deck, and I just don't like it. Like, it just feels very unimpactful, you know? I feel like this could be a dead cantrip a lot of the times. Like, you're trying to cantrip, and you just give trample, and sure, you draw a card, but it doesn't quite do it for me. Feels like you'd need to have a lot of setup cards. Ryle deals 1 damage, and you draw a card. So I guess we have a strictly better Ryle? Not really. It's not a strictly better Ryle, because Ryle oftentimes is used towards Enrage. So, not quite sold on that. Gruul Deeproot Champion deck. Well, if we're talking about that, if we're talking about your Deeproot Champion deck, and I'll show you the suggestion that I would put in it. This is not the deck builder that I like to use. I don't know why it always auto defaults to Yahoo when I open a new tab when I have Google Chrome. It's very strange. Anyway, I'm getting derailed officially. This is the first major derail of the stream. But if we're talking Deeproot Champion, just run Slip Through Space. I know it's not in Standard, but man, this card would be so good for your Deeproot Champion deck. Anyway, let's get back on the rails. Because it's in my settings. Yeah, I'll have to adjust settings, I guess. I'm not the most like, I've tried to do things, and I am not the most technically gifted person in the internet. Like, it takes effort, man. I gotta look it up. Defiant Kenra, 1 and a red, 2/2. Okay, I'm not gonna talk about that unless you guys want me to read the flavor text. It sounds kind of boring as I'm skimming through it, so I'm not gonna do that. Most likely you installed a program that had a default option of set Yahoo as a default search engine. Yeah, fuck Yahoo. Fuck Yahoo. It's so much worse. Google is so much better. It's just Google Master Race. It's the best search engine. Or program? Search program? I don't know. Read all flavor text with impressions. You're not in CGB's chat. Shardat. I'm not gonna just put on this Arnold Schwarzenegger voice and read Defiant Kenra to you all. This is not CGB here. This is Ninjo. Firefox does things. Okay, let's get on to Earthshaker Kenra. One in a red. I prefer Chrome over Firefox. I feel like I've had a better experience with Chrome. Okay, Earthshaker Kenra. You guys gonna let me talk about this like $5 card? Covert Go Blue, please take over this stream. He's just gonna come into my driveway, fucking take the stream over. Okay, Jackal Warrior Haste. When it enters the battlefield, target creature with power less than or equal to Earthshaker Kenra's power can't block this turn. I like this card. One thing that I like about it is that unlike On-Crop Crasher, it's not like you have to exert this, you know? There's no exert effect attached. You just get it automatically, which can be worse and it can be better, because exerting keeps it tapped down, but this is a one-time deal. It's only when it enters the battlefield, so they're different. But I think Earthshake Kenra is really good. Just the fact that you haste this out and something can't block it. And normally when you're playing this on turn 2, like, they might have something that can block it, but now they won't because you're hasting it out and that thing can't block. So if you're playing this on curve, I think this card is great. Is this a strictly better version of... Let's see if I can find the card. There's a card with haste somewhere in here, and I think it's just strictly better than it. See if I can find it. Here we are. Ness Driver. 1 in a red, 2/1 haste. 1 in a red, 2/1 haste with effects. Yes, we have a strictly better Ness Driver now. Not that anyone was really playing Ness Driver before, but I think a lot of people are going to be playing Earthshaker Kenra, myself being one of them. And I love the Eternalize effect, because the Eternalize effect actually helps with its original effect. With power less than or equal to Earthshaker's power. Well, guess what? He's going to have 4 power when you Eternalize him. His toughness is also going to go up. It's not going to be a 4/3, it's going to be a 4/4. And that's really annoying. Imagine having a 4/4 haste target creature less than or equal to his power can't block. That sounds super annoying. I love it. Shaolin's taken off. Alright, man. I'm not making your Jackal Tribal deck. I'm sorry. But, yeah. Take care. Alright. Let's see. Fervent Paincaster. Is this a pervert card? Hazard the Fervent. 2 in a red. Human Wizard. Fervent Paincaster deals 1 damage to target player. Exert Fervent Paincaster. It deals 1 damage to target creature. This card sounds very underwhelming. First of all, it has 1 toughness, which I generally don't like. Those cards are pretty easy to pick off. For 3 mana, nonetheless. And then both of its effects just don't do much, do they? Yeah, I just don't like it. Even like in an enraged deck, like even enraged decks don't want this card. Like say you want to deal damage to your own creatures, I'd much rather just play around with where are you? With Raging Regisaur, right? Because then I can just deal 1 damage to my Ripjaw Raptor, draw a card. So not even like dinosaur decks want this card. Yeah, I think it's pretty bad, and I don't really have much else to say about it. Firebrand Archer, 1 in a red. Human Archer, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Firebrand Archer deals 1 damage to each opponent. 2/1. 2 HG, I guess. You could run this in your 2 HG decks, but it just feels pretty underwhelming as well. The art is pretty cool. A word of vengeance and her arrows awaken in flame. That's pretty badass. But as far as being playable, I think she's too underwhelming. And you're just not going to get much mileage from her. Okay, frontline Devastator, 3 and a red. Zombie Minotaur Warrior. I always find it funny when they have like 3 different tribes attached. That's a lot of tribes. It's a Zombie Minotaur Warrior. Afflict 2. When this creature becomes blocked, defending player loses 2 life. 1 in a red. Frontline Minotaur gets +1/+0 until end of turn. It's 4 mana card, 3/3. No. It's too underwhelming. You gotta compare this to cards like Hazoret and Rekindling Phoenix, and it's not even close. Not gonna be playing around with Frontline Devastator. I do think Afflict is a fun mechanic, but I haven't seen anything with Afflict that's been like good enough yet, which is pretty sad. I was hoping, you know, maybe we might get some good Afflict cards, but so far that has not been the case. Gilded Ceradon, 4 and a red beast. When Gilded Ceradon attacks, if you control a desert or there is a desert card in your graveyard, target creature cannot block this turn. 4/4. Again, feels pretty underwhelming. This thing has some crazy hair though. Look at this. It looks like one of those like hairstyles that you would see coming out of like the 80s, you know, like a mohawk or something. It's pretty crazy. But I think this card's pretty bad. If it had haste, oh my goodness, I would actually like this card if it had haste. But not that good. The bad part about joining a pretty solved meta is underwhelming cards. Yeah, that's true. There's going to be a lot of cards that I unfortunately just have to trash on, simply because they just don't quite make, you know, any decks. And I think Granitic Titan, probably pronounced that wrong. Granitic, 4 and 2 red, Elemental Menace, cycling 2, 5/4. I think this card is also a bad card. The art is actually pretty cool though. I love seeing like these elemental creatures that it just awaken. It looks like there's a building on top of it. You see that? Like this little arch, this little structure on top. That one's not mine. Run, Nissa Rivane. Which, if you didn't know, Nissa, she controls the earth, I guess, and makes elementals. So I guess that's the funny. That's why I laughed. That's the lore. It's a joke. All right. Hazard's Undying Fury, 4 and 2 red. That's expensive. Shuffle your library, then exile the top 4 cards. You may cast any number of non-land cards with CMC 5 or less from among them without paying their mana costs. Lands you control don't untap during your next untap step. So it's another one of those like Bantu's Last Reckoning type cards. Except Hazoret didn't die because she's a badass. I think it's pretty bad though. Lore-wise, it's pretty cool. You can see the Scarab God. The Scarab God's shadow is just looming over her, and you can tell from the little scarab right there. But as far as is this card good, I think it's pretty bad. You get 4 cards, and it can whiff. I mean, it's playing the wheel, right? You're just spinning the wheel of fortune, and that might not always be the best idea, because you can just get wrecked by the wheel of fortune. You could just draw 4 lands, and you're probably going to draw lands if you're running a deck that runs Hazoret's Undying Fury, because this is an expensive card. And if you want to play an expensive card, you need to run at least like 25 land or so. So your RNG chances of drawing land off of Hazoret's Undying Fury, it's a little bit higher than the normal deck. What kind of red cards are we talking here? Are we talking Hour of Devastation? Is that what you want to cast? Maybe. Like, maybe if you can get Hour of Devastation, Hazoret, and I don't know, 2 other good cards, maybe you can do something with that. But I don't really like this this wheel. I think it's a bad wheel to spin, and I'm not a big fan of it. Okay, Hour of Devastation, 3 and 2 red, sorcery. All creatures lose indestructible until end of turn. Hour of Devastation deals 5 damage to each creature and each non-bolus planeswalker. Here we go! Okay, finally! Finally! I've played in the arena meta for so long, and I've had so many shitty sweepers that I've had access to. Finally! We have good sweepers. Not only do we have Hour of Devastation, we have Sweltering Suns. We have good sweepers coming. You gotta play red. Playing red is a requirement, but the fact that we have good sweepers, oh, I am excited for that. And this one's great! Their Adanto Vanguards can't even survive it. You cast this, they activate Indestructible, not gonna work. They're gonna lose it. They're gonna lose Indestructible. Oh man, I am excited for this card. If you couldn't tell, I was getting really bored for a while, reading like 5 back-to-back. No, I would say this is a back-to-back card too. Like 6 back-to-back bad cards, and then you just give me Hour of Devastation. I feel like I was drowning, and someone just gave me like a life raft. And I know it's not even close to that. If anyone is a drowned victim, I do apologize. I'm just trying to use metaphors here. I'm not trying to offend people, but let's be honest. Everyone gets offended on the internet nowadays. But seriously, Hour of Devastation. This card is insane. I am excited. I am a fan. Being able to deal 5 damage to just whatever to planeswalkers. Whew. Dealing 5 damage to planeswalkers. That sounds fun. Yeah, I'm excited about this. This card's gonna be great, and I'm definitely gonna build control decks that are built with Hour of Devastation in the deck, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. And if I'm not using Hour of Devastation, guess what? I got Sweltering Suns. No big deal. Yeah, I'm pretty hyped. In case you couldn't tell. Okay, Imminent Doom. 2 and a red enchantment. Imminent Doom enters the battlefield with a Doom counter on it. Whenever you cast a spell with converted mana cost equal to the number of Doom counters on Imminent Doom, Imminent Doom deals that much damage to target creature or player, then put a Doom counter on it. Jesus, how many times did I say Doom there? Doom, 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 Doom. 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 Is that 6 times? I had to say Doom 6 times in this card. Like, come on. Is this card good? Probably have to build a pretty weird deck for it that has a lot of 1-drops, 2-drops, 3-drops, and 4-drops. It enters the battlefield with a Doom counter on it, so you have to have enough 1-drops to trigger this. And then you have to have enough 2-drops to trigger this, and then you have to have enough 3-drops to trigger this. And you guys see where I'm going. Like, the list goes on. You could use X spells to sort of cheat and like say it was like X and then you made it X3 just to cast you know, something 3 CMC. But no, I think this card's pretty bad. It requires a lot of work to get this card to go off. You need to follow this weird curve, and it just sounds like you really have to build a deck in advance just to make this card work. And even then, I feel like it's not going to be that great. I'm not impressed. Okay. Inferno Jet. Let's see. There are other permanents that work like this as well. Isn't there something similar in Ixalan? I can look for you real quick. I'm gonna look only in red though. Doesn't look like it thus far, but I haven't looked very hard. I know there's the thing with the dinosaur. I guess you could say Sunbird's Invocation, but that's on a whole nother power level. I think Sunbird's Invocation just outplays that card. There's also a card called Form of the Dinosaur, which is similar but completely different. Form of the Dinosaur, it's very different. I don't think you were referring to this card. Maybe you were, but yeah, I don't know. I just don't like this card. There was the evolve mechanic from a while ago. Yeah, and I know evolve is what was evolve? That was when it dies, it gets bigger, or no? I can't remember how evolve works. It's not really too relevant. I don't want to get too derailed. Something I can always look up later, or if Eugenides feels kind enough, he can write it down. But anyway, Inferno Jet. Sorcery deals 6 damage to target opponent and it has cycling. This card's just bad. 6 mana, even with the cycling attached to it. It can't deal damage to creatures, which makes it really awkward. It would have to be against like a planeswalker or just try to finish someone's life total off. But I don't think having a card that goes upstairs is going to help you too much. Even with cycling, kind of underwhelmed by Inferno Jet. Okay, Kenra Scrapper, 2 and a red. Jackal Warrior, Menace. You may exert Kenra Scrapper as it attacks. When you do, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Just another mech card. Nothing to see here, just more mech cards. Alright, let's get Kindled Fury. 1 red, target creature gets +1/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. That's not awful. It's a cheaper Sure Strike. If a creature with higher power or toughness entered the battlefield, the creature with evolve would get a +1 counter. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that sounds interesting. You know, I'm surprised they didn't make an evolve mechanic in dinosaurs, because dinosaurs, I don't know, I just think of evolution when I think of dinosaurs. Then again, the dinosaurs didn't have good enough evolution to survive a supposed meteorite that struck Earth like 20 million years ago, so maybe it's incorrect of me to think that evolution and dinosaurs should be put in the same sentence. Dinosaurs got fucked up by that meteorite. Anyway, derailed as usual. Is Kindled Fury better than Sure Strike? I don't know. Flavor fail? Yeah. Let's see you evolve out of a meteor strike. Yeah. You know, I thought they might, because evolution, that's when it first started. Like, that's when you when you watch these evolution videos. I don't know if any of you guys have seen, what's the name of it? It's Neil deGrasse Tyson's, his little series that he did not too long ago. Cosmos? I don't know if any of you have seen Cosmos, but, they talk a lot about DNA, not DNA, they talk about evolution quite a bit, when they're talking about, you know, the dinosaurs and what came before the dinosaurs. I really need to finish that show. It's a good show. For any of you science type people, if you haven't seen it, would recommend it. And I know I haven't finished it myself, but it's something on my watch list. Is this better than Sure Strike? They're probably both not good cards. Let's be honest. How many of you guys use Sure Strike? I don't. I don't use Sure Strike very often. I think I'd rather have the option to have it be 1 mana less, because that does make it a lot cheaper, but I don't know. +3/+0 is pretty good too. That can certainly kill a lot of different things. But ultimately, I think they are both kind of meh. Thomas the Tank Engine approaching. You're making it sound scary, like Thomas the Tank Engine is like some horror thing. If you want to see a train, watch this train. I have to play it every now and again. Okay. Magmaroth, 3 and a red. Creature elemental at the beginning of your upkeep. Put a -1/-1 counter on Magmaroth. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, remove a -1/-1 counter from Magmaroth. Huh, that's interesting. For any of you guys that may not be aware, we did review a card yesterday, very similar to this, but a little different. So, Amit Eternal, suit in a black. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, put a -1 counter on Amit Eternal. Whenever Amit Eternal deals combat damage to a player, remove all -1 counters. This is like that card, but the opposite of it. Because that card relies on your opponent's casting spells, whereas this one relies on you casting non-creature spells to keep this card big. This card's pretty bad. It's just a 4-mana 5/5 with some downside, but I think the comparison is interesting. But yeah, ultimately I would not run this card in any of my decks. I do like the little comparison though between Amit Eternal and Magmaroth. I'm the mascot of Derailment. Yes. Or he is. I could be the mascot of Derailment though. If you think about it. If you think of how many times I've gotten derailed, I could be that mascot. Just show my face whenever you see someone else getting derailed. I wouldn't mind. I would not be against that. Free advertising, right? Manticore Eternal. 3 and 2 red. Afflict 3. Attacks each combat if able. So it's kind of like a Juggernaut. For any of you guys who played duels, there was an artifact, Juggernaut, that had to attack every turn. Oh, Thomas the Tank Engine from your little derailment video. Yeah, I wish I had sound for that. It would make it a little better. Anyway, Manticore Eternal. Yeah, this is a pretty bad card. Cards that have to attack every turn generally meet bad ends, you know? It is a 5/4, so it's kind of tough to block, and if they block it, they do lose 3 life, so I won't call it awful. I don't think it's awful, but is it bad? Yes. Maybe it'd probably be pretty good draft. Like if I pulled this in a draft and wanted to make a deck that really pressures life totals, I think this would be kind of the one. It'd be awesome if it had Menace or something, so that making it, blocking it would be a little more difficult, but sadly it does not. Here's a fun looking card. Neheb, the Eternal. 3 red. Legendary creature, zombie, minotaur, warrior. Afflict 3. At the beginning of your post-combat main phase, add 1 red to your mana pool for each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn. Huh. Feels kind of underwhelming still. Like, I don't know. Do red decks really need like a ton of mana? Like, is there like some X red spell that you can use that just deals damage based on how much mana you tap? It's not bad. Like, I would totally use this if I pulled it in draft. The 6 toughness is nice, because that means if they do block it, like, it's probably going to survive, especially if you play it on curve. But we're talking tier 1, we're talking Chupacabras, like, I don't know, man. I kind of feel like this card's going to get killed a lot, and he's not impactful enough, just because you're gaining a bit of mana for each damage they did. Like, what are you going to put that mana into? You're running a red deck. You're not running a ramp deck, you know? Like, if we're talking Zakama and this is green, maybe. But even then, he's a 5-drop. Like, you gotta... It's not like you're going to keep that mana permanently. The mana pool will float away when you're done with it. I wish he had a more impactful effect. Like, what if it was Afflict 3 and then you just replace this paragraph with any other paragraph? Like, there's got to be better there's got to be better things you can do than get your mana pool bigger. I want to like this card because he's a mythic rare, he's a 4/6. He has Afflict 3. But I just don't like it. The art's pretty badass, but it just doesn't do it for me. You gotta run these like weird spells just for it to work, and then your deck is just kind of janky by that point. I wish I could. I really wish I could get behind him, but I can't. I think he's kind of bad. Okay. Open Fire, 2 and a red, instant. Open Fire deals 3 damage to target creature or player. This is just a strictly worse Lightning Strike. So just don't play this card. Yeah, there's like no reason to spend a common on this card. Like, just don't do it. We have access to Lightning Strike, and it's a better card, strictly better. Okay, Puncturing Blow, 2 red. Puncturing Blow deals 5 damage to target creature. If that creature would die this turn, exile it instead. Is that the Scarab God? It looks kind of like the Scarab God. I think it is. Wow. Samut is badass. Look at Samut going head to head with the Scarab God. Neither the false God Pharaoh nor his bugs will decide our fate. That is so badass. Wow. This is actually sideboard tech against Scarab Gods, ironically enough. I know it's a common, it's kind of shitty, but I think if you're facing Scarab God, this is actually decent sideboard tech. If you're facing Hazoret, this is decent sideboard tech. Most gods, this is decent sideboard tech. As janky as it looks, I would be willing to run, like, say I know I'm going up against the Scarab God deck, I might actually play around with it. Former Talkrap Initiate. Samut got fired. Don't talk shit about Samut, CGB. Samut is like my hero. She's like wicked badass. Oh man, look at me using my slang now. People like to use the word wicked in Massachusetts, so if I sound really really lame, it's part of our slang. But yeah, I think Puncturing Blow, it's not actually as bad as it appears. Because Scarab God is a pretty common deck. Like, if you look at the standard meta, it probably makes up like 30% of the fields. I know there's like 3 different decks that run Scarab God, maybe even 4. There's like a lot that run Scarab God, and if you could just sideboard this in against any of those decks, I don't think you're crazy. I think you're actually doing it right, and I'm a fan. I think the flavor's a win. I think the card's a win. I thought I was going to trash this card because, let's be honest, when I see something that's called Puncturing Blow, 2 red, Sorcery, I think that I'm going to hate the card. But no, I'm actually a fan. Surprisingly, I did not think that going into this card I was going to be like, yeah, this card's good, but I actually like it. Okay. Sand Strangler, 3 and a red, beast. When Sand Strangler enters the battlefield, if you control a desert or there is a desert card in your graveyard, you may have Sand Strangler deal 3 damage to target creature. Okay, now this is a bad card. I can officially say that I think this is a bad card. I guess you gotta use deserts, and you can have a shitty Chupacabra. That's probably the best you can do with it, right? Like, you just use deserts, and hopefully you kill something and you have a 3/3. I guess in some cases it could be better than Chupacabra. Man, I feel really bad for saying this is a bad card. I just wanted to shit on the next card I saw, and I didn't fully read it. I'm starting to like it more and more. I'm sorry, Sand Strangler. Please don't strangle me with your sand. I sort of like it. Again, it's kind of janky, but it could be a better Chupacabra. Like, you could have a better Chupacabra. You could have a 3/3 for 4 that deals 3 damage and kills something, you know? Yeah. No, I take back everything I said, CGB. Here's the thing. I just get done reviewing one janky card, and I see this common, and you gotta take into consideration that I just got done reviewing Imminent Doom, Inferno Jet, Kenra Scrapper, Kindled Fury, Magma Mouth, Manticore Eternal, Neheb, and Open Fire. Do I expect the next card that looks like really kind of boring. Like, it just looks like some common that's a 4 mana 3/3 with a little bit of text. Do you think that card's going to turn out to be great when you read it? No. I went on a limb, and I thought this card would be garbage. But I'm wrong. This card is really good. And I just made an assumption going in that, excuse me, a little bit of throat congestion. I made an assumption that it would be pretty bad, but no. I think getting deserts is a pretty popular part of Standard right now. There's a lot of Standard decks that like to use their deserts, and having a slightly bigger Chupacabra seems pretty good. Unbiased set reviews, that's why we're here. No, I like it though. There's just a lot of things that this hits, you know? Like, you're able to just, like, so many creatures have less than 3 toughness, or 3 toughness or less, I should say. Are you saying I'm being biased, Sharda, or are you saying I'm being unbiased? I can't tell. I can't tell if that's an insult or a compliment. I'm going to interpret it as a compliment. I am being incredibly unbiased right now. Okay. Thorned Moloch, 2 and a red, prowess, lizard, 2/2, has first strike as long as it's attacking. No. 3 mana, I mean, put it in your prowess deck, right? Put it in your janky prowess deck, and then you can have something that works. But I'm not a fan of this card. It you have to have it in the right deck, right? You have to have instants, you have to have enough prowess creatures, and I don't know if this card really works otherwise. The red Thalia, it is far from a Thalia. Thalia makes all how does it go? Thalia makes all creatures come in tapped, and also non-basic lands come in tapped as well. The text reads something like that. This is no Thalia. I know you're capping me, but yeah, it just seems kind of mediocre to me. Maybe you can run your prowess deck with this, but otherwise, I think it's pretty meh. Okay. Wildfire Eternal. Man, let me get a drink of water. I am getting some major throat congestion right now. Okay. Feel a little better. Wildfire Eternal, 3 and a red. Afflict 4. That's interesting. That's the highest Afflict cost that we've seen. The Wild Eternal artwork, I agree. This guy has some badass artwork. Look at this guy. I don't know if you guys have seen Doctor Strange, but that's kind of who this reminds me of. Whenever Doctor Strange goes through dimensions, he kind of does this effect where these like flame-looking things swirl around him, and his hands get lit up with like some magic. Really reminds me of Doctor Strange, and I think it looks pretty badass. Okay. Whenever Wildfire Eternal attacks and isn't blocked, you may cast an instant or sorcery card from your hand without paying its mana cost. It's a 1/4. So either they block it and take 4 damage, or they don't block it and you cast an instant or sorcery card from your hand without paying its mana cost. That is interesting. I like it. What kind of sorceries and instants did they give us? Like, was there anything? There's Puncturing Blow. There's nothing amazing. Oh, there's Hazard's Undying Fury. Okay. that's pretty cool. I think Hazard's Undying Fury is awesome. This is probably the synergy, right? You play Hazard's Undying Fury without paying its mana costs. Lands you control don't untap during your next untap step. Who cares? Because you didn't have to pay its mana costs. We're in Janktown, I realize that, but we're in Funtown as well. This is interesting. So you attack, they don't block it, they take 1, you get to cast Hazard's Undying Fury for free. You get to cast any number of non-lands, CMC 5 or less, among the top 4 cards of your library without paying their mana costs, which doesn't untap. Just because your lands aren't untapping, who cares? Just because your lands don't untap, you're not going to be spending mana. You're going to just run the best cantrip of all time, right? You just attack with Wildfire Eternal. You get to cast a 6-drop for free, which casts 4 other cards for free. Like, that's amazing. It's janky though. I'm not saying it's competitive, but it is amazing. And I kind of want to live that dream one day. It's going to be a hard dream to live, but man, doesn't that look fun? That's just one combo though. Like, I'm sure there's other things you can do. Eugenides is saying Overflowing Insight. Whew, that'd be interesting. No, I think it's interesting. Like, what if you paired this up with I gotta find the card real quick. Let's see. What if you paired this up with something about it's a 6-mana enchantment. Sunbird's Invocation, Like, if you're in Janktown, you might as well just run everything that's janky. So you run Sunbird's Invocation, you run Wildfire Eternal, and then every time you cast an instant or sorcery, you get to essentially Cascade. That sounds pretty fun. I'm a fan. Janky, but fun. I don't know. I'm probably gonna try to find a way to make this card work. It's probably not as good as I want it to be, but I don't care. Just Afflict 4 sounds really good too. Like, they block this thing and take 4 damage, and assuming it survives, you can do everything over again. Definitely sounds interesting. It kind of reminds me of I believe it's called Verdurous Gearhulk. There's definitely a Gearhulk that's red that you essentially just, they let you draw 3 cards, or you discard the top 3 cards of your library, and they take damage to that CMC. Which, by the way, getting a little derailed, I was watching a stream with that card, and someone took 24 damage with it. There's decks that people are running in Standard revolving around that. Not saying they're tier 1, but there are decks. Before I move on to my deck tech, I do want to say that I will be Combustible Gearhulk. Yes, you got it, Eugenides. But before I move on to my deck tech, I do want to say that I will be streaming again tomorrow. No. Tomorrow is Monday, so I'm actually going to be streaming again on Tuesday. I do apologize for punting there. But yeah, on Tuesday I will be streaming again, and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to be talking green. Hope you guys show up for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Alright. Let's segue